Hello, and welcome to the Romancing in Paris podcast. I'm your host, Lily Heise, an author, travel writer, and tour guide who's been living in Paris for over 20 years. I run the website Je t'aime me neither, the only site dedicated to modern romantic things to do in Paris and beyond. In this podcast, we'll be traveling around the city as I pick out my top romantic spots per arrondissement. You don't have to visit these places only as a couple. Exploring them can be the expression of your own love of Paris. Are you ready to get romancing in Paris? Welcome to the second episode of the Romancing in Paris podcast. This new edition takes us to the second arrondissement of Paris. Located on the right bank of the city and extending from the Opera District to the Boulevard de Sébastopol, although the second is Paris's smallest district, it has some great, secret, cool, and romantic places. Charming streets, tiny squares, and the hip Montorgueil area all make it ideal for a romantic outing in Paris. Since it has so many unique and so very romantic places, it was hard to pick just one for this episode. Nevertheless, I've chosen a place that doesn't have just one romantic quality, but several. Plus, if you listened in to our first episode, you will have discovered the Palais Royal with us. And you're in luck. This new site is located a short distance away, and so you can combine the two. Grab your chérie. We're heading to the Galerie Vivienne. Covered passageways, or passages couverts in French, started popping up in Paris in the early 19th century, predominantly on the right bank and in the Opera District. These covered arcades offered shoppers a clean and dry place to browse from shop to shop. By the mid-19th century, there were around 150 of these passageways. However, with the arrival of the new, wide boulevards and huge department stores during the Second Empire, these shopping arcades fell out of fashion. All but a few dozen were demolished, which makes the ones which survived all the more special. That said, some stand out above the rest, and the Galerie Vivienne is among the city's most beautiful. Beginning at 4 Rue des Petits Champs, the L-shaped arcade was commissioned in 1823 by a certain Maître Marchou, president of the Chamber of Notaries. Built at the former location of the Hôtel Vanel de Saran and the Petit Père Passage, it was designed by architect François-Jacques Delannoy. The pretty passageway is much more elaborate than many of the other covered passageways of Paris. It features a graceful neoclassical Pompeian-style decor with geometric mosaics, reliefs of goddesses, nymphs, cornucopia, and crescent moons. Atop this is a glass canopy allowing beautiful natural light to descend into the gallery. The Galerie Vivienne also has a lovely rotunda, a feature not seen in many of the other Parisian passageways. Inaugurated in 1826, it was originally called the Passage Marchou, after its founder. His daughter inherited it upon his death, and when she too passed away in 1870, she bequeathed part of it to the Fine Art Academy of Paris, which still retains part ownership. A century after its opening, the arcade was almost torn down, and then, in 1960, it was saved a second time from the demolition ball by artist Huguette Spengler, who used it as an exhibition space for her art installations. The arrival of a different sort of artist in 1986, fashion designer Jean-Paul Gaultier, gave fresh life to the Passage once again. It's now lined with nice, small designer boutiques, some of which are historic. More on these in a minute. In recent years, it has undergone restoration work, which has cleaned up its walls and ceilings. I personally feel these are well done, but apparently they have caused some controversy. I'm tempted to suggest you enter the passageway via its northwestern entrance at number 6 Rue Vivienne. This will allow you to slowly soak in the arcade's ambiance and its romantic appeal. This way you'll also meet its oldest shop, La Librairie Jussiam, a bookshop which first opened in 1826 and which has been run by the Jussiam family for 3 generations. A bibliophile's dream, you and your sweetheart can take some time browsing its dusty shelves that contain over 40,000 new and used books, some of which are also in English. You could make a game of it by choosing out a book for your partner and seeing what the other has selected for you. Afterwards, take your time meandering down the lane, admiring its shop windows and elegant reliefs. Gaze down at the mosaics which have been weathered by thousands of footfalls, and certainly many romantics. After you pass under the rotunda, look for number 13. Its staircase once led to the home of an infamous character of French history, Eugène François Vidocq, a former convict of the turn of the 19th century. Vidocq was chosen to head a special police squad made up of former criminals like himself. He inspired a number of writers, including Alexandre Dumas, Honoré de Balzac, and Victor Hugo, who is even thought to have modeled Jean Valjean from Les Miserables after him. It's also said that there is a secret tunnel which Vidocq used to flee from here and reach the Palais Royal. This adds a dash of intrigue to your romantic stroll. We'll be right back with Romancing in Paris after a word from our sponsors.
Marie, should I find an apartment before I move to Paris?
Well,
What's a tenant file? And a guarantor? Do I need them?
depends.
I just bought an apartment. What should I do with it?
Congratulations. Something to think about our...
Is it better to rent my apartment furnished or unfurnished? How do I set my rental rates?
Gail, these are all great questions, but the answers may not be so simple. Perhaps it's better to tune into our new podcast, Paris, a State of Mind.
Oh, that's a great idea. I'm Gail Boisclair.
And I'm Marie Pistinier.
Between us, we have more than 35 years of experience in real estate and rental services. Listen in as we answer all your burning queries.
You can even submit your own questions for us to answer.
Paris, a State of Mind. Mondays on Paris Underground Radio.
If I ask you what it's like to be a Parisian writer, what do you imagine? Drinking noisette after noisette in a noisy cafe? Jotting down lines in your bedside journal while your lover fetches you fresh croissant? Stumbling down the streets overflowing with prose and red wine like Hemingway? Well, now's your chance to find out. My name is Jennifer Garrity, and I'm host of the Storytime in Paris podcast. In each episode, I chat with a writer with a French connection. The twist? The questions come from you, the writer's biggest fans and followers. Then our beloved writers will read us an excerpt from their books. So cozy up with a noisette, a croissant, or whatever's your pleasure, and settle in for Storytime in Paris on Paris Underground Radio.
And now, back to Romancing in Paris. Across from this is another of the passageway's historic boutiques, Le Grand Fille et Fils, a wine shop and bar dating back to the 1800s. Originally an épicerie specialized in spices, coffee, tea, and other exotic products from the East, the successful boutique was bought by brothers Alexandre and Pierre Legrand, who also started selling their own wine, bought in barrels at the Bercy wine warehouses and bottled right here at the shop. Today, the shop has over 3,000 references, a select few which can be sampled by the glass at their wine bar, as well as a range of other gourmet products on offer from their original épicerie section on Rue de la Banque. You can simply admire the prestigious labels in their window as well. If you don't stop here for a drink, you can also get one or a full meal at the last venue of the passageway, the Bistro Vivienne. A great date spot. It has a twinned dining room as well as seating in the passageway. It is decked out in deep burgundy drapes, vast windows, and leafy plants. Its menu features revisited French traditions with a contemporary twist. If you're ready to carry on your romantic explorations and you didn't find Vidocq's secret passageway, then you can also exit Galerie Vivienne on Rue des Petits Champs, cross the street, and take the small Passage des Deux Pavillons, which will lead you to the Palais Royal from episode number 1. Thank you for listening to this edition of the Romancing in Paris podcast. If you would like to discover more romantic places in the 2nd arrondissement, see my website, jetammeneither.com, for my ultimate guides to the top romantic spots per arrondissement of Paris. The Galerie Vivienne and one of its shops are also the subject of one of the chapters in my latest book, There's Only One Paris. Stay tuned for an upcoming episode of my other podcast, Paris Cachet, which will uncover a more hidden and unusual place in the 2nd arrondissement. This podcast was produced by Paris Underground Radio. Check out their website if you're interested in listening to more great podcasts on Paris.